Well, because it's embarrassing what happened and how this goal stands in the Premier League, in the best league that we say is the best league in the world. We really have to think about it deeply, because I've been 20 years in this country and now I feel ashamed. It's an absolute disgrace. You look it on the TV, it's an absolute disgrace, and it's too much at stake. We are trying to do incredible things to be at the highest level every single week. When we are not good enough, I'm the first one to put my hand up and say it's my fault, my responsibility. This is unacceptable. I don't want to be in people's hands if that's the outcome. For sure it's not. It's too difficult.
Is it the process that's at fault, or the people in charge of the process?
It's the outcome. The outcome is nowhere near the level that this league needs to have. And the way this league is getting competed every single day and in every single ball is not good enough. It's just, honestly, I feel embarrassed to be part of this. Embarrassed, this is my word.
Well, maybe you've seen something I haven't, because I've only seen it with the naked eye. I only seen it live, and from my angle I had no idea what was going on, to be honest, and I had no idea what was going on with the VAR checks either. So in the lap of the gods, really, you're waiting like everybody else was in the stadium, and obviously with every check that was going through, you're thinking they're probably going to find something wrong with it. Very bizarre to have 3 VAR checks, but the goal was given, and that's all I know.
Now, Newcastle against Arsenal, it had everything, people. It had VAR drama, it had S-housery, it had handbags, it had controversial moments for both teams. It had a masterclass in the dark arts from Bruno Guimaraes. He probably should have got 20 million yellow cards, people, and definitely a red for what he did to Jorginho. To be fair, you could also argue Kai Havertz, could have been sent off. I do think the referee failed to control the game, and while it was a good game for the neutrals, and I don't think it was in terms of football quality, just in terms of scrappiness, desire, wanting it more, I think it was a good spectacle. But I do think the referee apologies ruined the game for both teams. I think he has to protect players. He definitely didn't do that where Arsenal were concerned. Arsenal did less than Newcastle, but we did throw our weight around, and that was probably the only positive, if I'm completely honest, is that we've got a bit of new mentality and we refuse to be bullied. We gave it as good as we got. It was a low-key affair. There wasn't too much quality on display in the final thirds for both teams. Pope and Raya had nothing really to do apart from when Raya picked the ball out the back of the net, obviously. And I'm sure both managers would want a bit more. It's another defeat in a week. And it's disappointing for Arsenal Football Club, if I'm completely honest with you. And we have to get with it, man. We need to start becoming villains. I'm not saying this right, but you can't hate the player. You have to hate the game, people, really and truly. Did the ball go out of play? Was there a foul? Was it offside? I think we could have defended better. Fundamentally, the goal happened. But I think there's deeper issues away from the VAR and looking at maybe decisions that did or didn't go our way, if I'm completely honest with you. Personally, off topic, I think we had a pen shout as well in the first half, but these things never happened for us, really. It's another game ruined by VAR. Well, I don't know if you agree if you're Newcastle, but, they'll get their comeuppance. It happens to everyone. 2 defeats in a week. November's been horrible. Verge of tears. Unbeaten run gone. It is what it is in that regards. I do feel like crying. I do find myself looking into space, thinking what if and things like that. But if I'm honest with you, I can't lie, people. I think there's deeper issues. I think when you get beyond the VAR, I think VAR decisions and what was or wasn't given has become a distraction, has become the main talking point. And I wouldn't quite say it deflects, but it deflects from both sides. I'm sure Eddie Howe would want a lot more from his team. Me being an Arsenal fan, I think there's deeper reasons as to why ultimately we didn't win, despite what VAR is saying. Really, I know, there's all different angles being used by VAR, and, 1 minute certain graphics are being used and not. Again, I don't know why these things happen. But honestly, folks, I believe, that's not the overriding factor as to why we didn't get 3 points, if I'm completely honest with you. We are 15th for big chances created in the Premier League. Against Newcastle, looking at the statistics, on the face of it, we were the dominant team and we did have more about it. But when you look at the game against West Ham, when you look at the game against Chelsea, where you look at, more or less every game, but just to carry on this theme, people, Crystal Palace, which to be fair, we were down to 10 men for a large periods of that game. When we've played Brentford recently, you look at the shots on target, it's not good enough, really. Against Spurs, yes, we did score 2 goals, and I'm well aware last year we got 80 odd, and we've got 20 odd so far from 10 or so games. And maybe I'm being a bit unrealistic, but we can do a lot better, really and truly. I think we've improved the tenfold off the ball, but it's come at a cost on the ball. Last year, look at the statistics we had, people. We was living. Now, when you look at Newcastle people. You know, out of possession, it was almost a 4-3-3, but it was almost a 5 in midfield with Almiron and Gordon tucking in. And as you know, if you have a decent defensive unit, I won't quite say low block, but a low block, a rigid unit, one that won't refuse to be broken down, Arsenal might pressure you. We might knock the ball side to side. We will get all our men into your half, but it is quite scripted. It is quite choreographed. It is quite predictable, really. And we need to get back to basics. I know we haven't got our strongest players available, but I've seen Arsene Wenger make some players play absolute football people. So I don't think goals should be an issue or asking stuff of Pope. Apart from that Martinelli effort, really and truly, what chances were there? It's side to side. It's quite scripted. I felt sorry for Saliba and Declan Rice in terms of performances anyways, but there wasn't much options. And again, going long against Newcastle, they're going to relish the physical battle. So naturally, at some point, as we've seen, you see the Sakas, the Martinellis and Cole have to drop deep to almost like they're playing fullbacks. Now, they can dance past a couple of players on a couple of occasions, but it's not consistent to demand that or realistic to demand that of them on 90 minutes. So our team naturally starts dropping deep. You know, Newcastle start getting forward and we've almost played into their hands. So I think chance creation and chance conversion was a reason as to why we didn't beat Newcastle. Jorginho, he was man of the match last year against them. Maybe that's why he was getting the S-Housery. Kai Havertz has more yellow cards than shots on target, which is crazy. Now, if I'm completely honest with you guys, people, again, VAR made the moment really and truly. Yes, if a pen gets given, if red cards happen for both teams, the game is under different variables. We all know sometimes we're going to get the rub of the green. I know it's difficult to say as Arsenal fans from VAR. Sometimes it's going to go against us. Obviously, Newcastle will get their just dues in everything as well, because everybody gets that. I don't agree with it. I've always said I believe VAR now. I have no problem with VAR. I have a problem with how human nature is implementing it. That incident you saw with them getting a goal, identical incidences will happen across the course of a season and there'll be a different outcome. Personally, I think with the money in the game and the top of the top individuals from boardroom to footballers and stuff like that, you know, I hate to refer to football as a business or entertainment, but with all of these people in these situations, do you really think it's coincidence that there's mediocre running of the referee in games? That's to create drama. That's so I'm on YouTube and a lot of you were speaking about it, pundits, people down the pubs. The system isn't broken. It's working how they want it to work, really. I don't think it's right, but I do find more solace in focusing on variables that we can control. And to be honest with you, scoring goals and creating chances or making Pope have to make a significant save, these are not issues with the referee. These are variables we can control, and we did not do that, really. It was a low-key affair. What Wilson had, they obviously scored. Wilson had an effort. There was a chance, I believe, in the first half of Anthony Gordon's chance. First touch, apologies, was a bit better. Maybe they get something from that in that regards. But it was a low-key affair. I'm sure Eddie Howe and Arteta, there's a lot of things they would like to do better, especially creating chances and fashioning chances. For us, that's been a problem. I'm well aware we've got 80-odd goals last season. We've got 20-odd this year. We are scoring goals. We are doing our thing in that regards. But again, and I know we're never going to be perfect, but creating chances and scoring are two things we don't look like doing. Had we have played to our potential, we probably could have put 3-4 past Newcastle. And the only thing we're moaning about in relation to that exact incident probably would have been not keeping a clean sheet through no fault of our own. Ultimately, goals win games. I think we've improved a lot off the ball, but I think it's come at a cost on the ball. And I think that's something for Mikel Arteta to arrest. Whatever you think about the attacking players, this shouldn't be an issue. And it does, you know, obviously everything we do is a result of the training ground, but it is quite rigid. It is quite predictable. It doesn't have that healthy randomness. And especially with our wingers, I don't think we get them into goal scoring positions enough. Say what you want about Eddie Nketiah. He is a service reliant, fairly limited striker with the greatest of respect. And I know a lot of us would like another striker, but when you look at our chance creation, of course, a better striker can make use of half chances that Eddie across the two games hasn't, or maybe make a goal off his own. But is it really as simple as saying we sign Ivan Toney, Vlahovic, whoever you want, and we're going to score goals? Because we don't look like a team that creates. Surely we should be creating and then looking at whoever's playing through the middle and saying, boy, maybe a more clinical man bags. And I believe a part of that's true, but I also believe overwhelmingly that is incorrect. And I think in terms of Mikel Arteta, everything the players are doing is a result of the training ground. So you need to take responsibility for ultimately chance creation and chance conversion, whether that's down to bringing in different personnel, whether that's down to just damn right creating more opportunities, which I think could be good. I stand behind Raya, but, you know, I think Raya and Ramsdale, it is a bit unclear. You know, Raya undoubtedly is the number one, but I have to argue, would Ramsdale do much worse? I think they're both in the same bracket. If and when the next Alisson comes on the scene, maybe it could do good just binning them both. I do like Raya. I see why he was brought into the team, but at present he's looking more and more unsure of himself every game. Like again, that goal we conceded, yes, maybe the ball went out, there's fouls, there's offsides and all of that, but ultimately play to the whistle, we've switched off, and not just Raya, everybody. That goal reminded me of the one where Saka and Benjamin White didn't do enough defensively, bit like in this game as well, and it's not just them, didn't do enough defensively at the Emirates where Maddison set up Son. Stop switching off, we're caught flat-footed. If the ref hasn't, it's like a boxing match. Until the boxing referee says get off your opponent, keep thumping him up. I'm being a bit harsh, but this is the harsh reality of football. The only thing I liked from the Newcastle game was when they were trying to bully us, we was giving it back. I'll give my players that. And I obviously it is a poor game in terms of creation and conversion, but I don't think we was terrible really. I think we was underwhelming. I don't think it was like the West Ham game earlier in the week. Maybe we need to stop playing these United teams unless the first day with Sheffield. Really, I actually think Kai Havertz, in terms of starting games, has had his best 2 games in a week, but that's saying something. We all know where Kai Havertz is, at the bars on the floor. We're praising him for, kind of getting 3 Newcastle players booked. So another one that comes down to Mikel Arteta's recruitment. And I still believe in Raya and Havertz. I could see why Timber Rice and Raya in particular were brought in the summer. But Raya is filtering into that more questions than answers. And every week that goes, I don't know if it's nervousness. I don't know if it's just one of those things. But people rightly so are going to say, yo, Gaffer, where is Ramsdale really? I don't think Jorginho was terrible, but ultimately, we do this thing at Arsenal where we take squad players that are good for, they'll give you a 5-game purple patch, or they can be utilized in the squad, and then we take them from being on the peripheral rotations to first team regulars. You can get away with Jorginho in midfield. Not that he was the biggest problem. You can get away with that game to game. When we're looking at you to play for an extended period, then we've got blunt knives trying to cut a steak essentially with Kai Havertz, with Eddie Nketiah, with Jorginho, and people of that ilk. And it's not just them. I'm not trying to scapegoat them or anything. Arteta, you're my guy. I believe in you. But in terms of some of these recruits, some of the byproduct of injuries and our squad depth, and ultimately how some players are playing and how we're moving, it's looking very spooky. If I'm honest with you, ultimately the play is too predictable. If I'm honest with you, I still think this season we're doing okay. We could do a lot better, especially with it seems like only Spurs are really looking like they're running away with things. Everyone's still in and around each other. That's why I'm kind of more vexed about the 3 points dropped against Newcastle in hindsight, the 2 points dropped against Fulham and Chelsea, and any time we've stumbled this season really. Chance creation, ultimately the more chance you create, the more shots you take, the more likely you're to score. There's been times we've hit double figures for shots and shots on target. We haven't done that in a lot of the big games, if I'm completely honest with you. It weren't good enough on top of defending. It weren't the other aspects, but it wasn't good enough against Chelsea. It wasn't good enough against Spurs, and it wasn't good enough against Newcastle. These are teams that you would say, regardless, are your rivals, and these are almost 6-pointers home and away, really. And we've not done too good in them games. Yes, big us up for beating Manchester City, easily the result of the season already, but it means nothing if we don't keep ticking along. Again, it seems like in terms of recruitment, in terms of how we play, in terms of the knock-on effects with injuries, we still keep shooting ourselves in the foot. And when I look at the chance creation of things, it should be a dream for any striker to play for Arsenal Football Club, definitely during the Emirates era or since Wenger's come in. Is it as white and black as saying you replace Eddie Nketiah or Gabriel Jesus with an Ivan Toney or any striker you want and they're going to bag goals? I think naturally a more hungry striker is going to get more, but we're not creating. We'll get this new striker and nothing will be done. If you buy a PlayStation or something, you need to buy the wires to plug it into the TV, and it doesn't seem like we're doing that really. I have to, I sympathize with Rice and Saliba. I think we did refuse to be bullied. I think them two in particular deserved a lot more. Much as I'm criticizing our lack of goals and things, to be fair, forgive me if I'm wrong, the Newcastle game in November is the only time we failed to hit the back of the net, people, and we are 5th for goals. But it does feel like for me that it is to a degree paper over the cracks, people. We have got 23 goals in the Premier League at this time and counting, and I'm not trying to water it down, but I think we got 4 against Bournemouth and 9 against Sheffield United. So when you start to contextualize things, it's not that we can't score goals. It's just ultimately goals win games. We need to do a lot better. I think obviously we conceded a goal, but I think we defended a lot better. We looked a lot more comfortable than I thought going into the Newcastle game to a degree, the middle third and the defensive third. But ultimately, it's the final third and everybody's contributions, really. We're going long. You're playing into Newcastle's hands. You've got skyscrapers like Lascelles and Dan Burn. When you play football, he's giving them problems. And I don't buy into this notion that Newcastle, I think a draw was the fair result. But, you know, credit to Newcastle, take nothing away from them. I don't buy into this, that we've been humbled, they battered us, they did this and that. We can't control the narratives. And I'm not trying to throw shades. I just honestly think it was an even game, really and truly. But we never looked like a team that was scoring across 90 minutes. Martinelli's chance in the first half where maybe he could have played in Saka, or he definitely has to work Pope a lot better. Probably the only ones there, really, if I'm completely honest with you. As I said, I think in many aspects we were poor, but I don't think it was, I didn't have the same feeling on reflection in the Chelsea game, or the first 45 minutes going into half time against Chelsea, or how we performed against West Ham in the Cup recently, or how we lost to Lens away from home. I didn't feel it was kind of like that. I can't say any player was terrible, really, but it was lackluster. It does leave you with wanting more, and it does feel like a missed opportunity, if I'm completely honest with you. I do feel like we were shortchanged by our attacking players in the final third, and it's not just them, you know. You need fullbacks to overlap. You need people to create space for others. You know, our first attacker is Raya, our first defender is Jesus already in Ketia. It's a fluid system, so everybody needs to take responsibility. But at the same time, the players are doing what the manager's telling them. I'm the first one to big up Mikel Arteta, so I have to hold the guy accountable to the high standards you've set, because it does feel like we're making progress, but then we're going back and then we're making progress again. We have to thank our lucky stars that our first L came in November. You know, hold ourselves accountable for this week. It's been a tough week in November. We need to pull our pants up now and keep going, because what started off as a dream of a season quickly could turn into a nightmare, people. For the large part, ultimately, I believe we defended well, but ultimately goals win games. You don't put the ball in the back of the net or look like a team that's going to put the ball in the back of the net, you're in issues. I feel our build-up play is too scripted, really. And, you know, Saka and Martinelli and even Trossard midweek, they're having to drop too deep. Don't get it twisted. You're going to have to do that at times, but our wingers are never in isolated positions, either creating it for them or against the run of play where they're really going to cause problems. You saw little bits and pieces where Saka, you know, Dan Burn, he's a good defender, but naturally Saka is a young boy. He's got, you know, spring in his step. Anytime Saka got to take him on, he's fouling him and stuff like that. On another day, I want to get him on a yellow card early, and every time Saka takes him on, scream and shout red card and things. And I think Martinelli needed a bit more in that regards. Not that anybody, you know, everyone needs to hold themselves accountable, but it is a bit predictable, and we're playing into people's hands, if I'm honest with you. You know, I'd say Saliba, Rice, probably Tomiyasu, probably somewhat standouts for me. Obviously, we're feeling the pinch with injuries, but Mikel Arteta assessed this squad and assembled it. And in the summer, we knew what we did or didn't do was going to have ramifications as how this season goes on. We can talk about January to a blue in the face. And as you see, my skin color will be here all day. I don't mind. But we need to deal with what we've got in front of us. So we need to lick our wounds, stop feeling sorry for ourselves. The game's gone now, and hope that we put a run of form together, and it starts in the Champions League at home to Sevilla, who are going to want revenge after we beat them at their place. Let me know your thoughts on the VAR decisions, on Newcastle against Arsenal, on what you may or may not feel in terms of chance creation and conversion. Do you think it's as easy as we get another striker example and we start bagging? Most importantly, stay blessed, stay safe. Appreciative to all of you lot tuned in. God bless you all. Check out the other vids. Peace.
You always use that active and that defending.
I think it's like